Everyone thinks they know what happened at my bachelorette party. They think I'm some horrible cheater who threw away a perfect relationship for a meaningless fling. But nobody wants to hear my side of the story. Nobody wants to know how my ex-fiancé destroyed my entire life over one mistake that happened when I was blackout drunk. Now I'm a single mother, abandoned by everyone, while he plays the victim and moves on with his perfect new girlfriend. I'm Julia, and a year ago I was supposed to marry the man I'd been with for 5 years. Now I'm raising a baby alone, my career is in ruins, and everyone I used to call a friend has turned their back on me. All because of one night in Miami that I barely even remember. Let me start from the beginning, because Mark's version— sorry, I know he didn't use real names in his posts, but I don't care anymore. Mark's version makes me sound like some calculating cheater who planned the whole thing. That's not what happened at all. Mark and I had been together since I was 24. He was sweet, stable, everything you're supposed to want in a husband. Was he the most exciting guy? No. Did he make my heart race? Not really. But he was dependable and he loved me, and after dating losers through most of my 20s, that felt like enough. Before Mark, my dating life was a disaster. There was Jake, the bartender who was gorgeous but dealt drugs on the side. Then Marcus, the musician who wrote beautiful songs about me but couldn't hold a job and eventually stole my credit card. Don't even get me started on Ryan, who I found out was married after 6 months of dating. So when my friend introduced me to Mark at her housewarming party, he seemed like a gift from heaven. Software developer, steady job, clean cut, no criminal record or secret families. He was the kind of guy my mother had been begging me to date for years. He's so normal, I told my best friend Lexi after our first date. Like almost too normal. Normal is good, she said. Normal means no drama. And she was right. Mark was drama-free to a fault. Our dates were predictable. Dinner and a movie, walks in the park, maybe a museum on Sundays. He'd pick me up at 7 o'clock sharp, have me home by 11 o'clock, kiss me goodnight at the door. It was like dating someone from a 1950s handbook. But after the chaos of my early 20s, that stability felt safe. My friends were jealous. Here was a guy with a 401k and health insurance who actually called when he said he would. He remembered birthdays, met my parents, even helped my dad fix the deck one weekend. Everyone loved Mark. "You hit the jackpot," my mom said after meeting him. "Don't screw this up, Julia." That became the theme of our relationship. Don't screw it up. Because guys like Mark didn't come along every day, especially for girls like me who'd spent their early 20s making bad choices in dive bars. Our relationship was comfortable. We had our routines: dinner at 6:30, watching Netflix until 10, sex on Wednesdays and Saturdays. It wasn't passionate, but it was predictable. And after the chaos of my previous relationships, predictable felt safe. When he proposed, I said yes because that's what you do after 5 years together. That's what everyone expected. My parents loved him. My friends thought he was perfect for me. "You're so lucky," they'd say. "Mark's such a good guy." And he was a good guy, maybe too good. He never argued, never raised his voice, never showed much emotion at all, really. Sometimes I'd pick fights just to get some kind of reaction, but he'd just look at me with those calm eyes and say, "Let's discuss this rationally." Planning the wedding was stressful. Mark had opinions about everything: the flowers, the menu, the color of the napkins. He made spreadsheets for every decision. Who makes spreadsheets for their wedding? But that was Mark, turning our wedding into another project to manage efficiently. He had a spreadsheet for guest lists with columns for dietary restrictions, +1s, and gift predictions. A spreadsheet for vendor comparisons with weighted scores for value, reviews, and availability. He even had a spreadsheet for our honeymoon itinerary with 15-minute increments blocked out for each activity. "Don't you think this is a bit much?" I asked one night, looking at his color-coded timeline for the reception. "I want everything to be perfect," he said, adjusting his glasses. "If we plan properly, nothing can go wrong." That was Mark's philosophy. Plan everything, control everything, eliminate all variables. But life isn't a spreadsheet. You can't plan for everything. Sometimes things just happen. My bachelorette party was supposed to be my last chance to let loose before becoming Mrs. Rational and Responsible. My friends had been planning it for months. Lexi, my maid of honor, kept saying, "This is your last weekend of freedom. We're going to make it count." The group was a mix of college friends, work friends, and Mark's sister, who he insisted I invite. 7 girls total, ranging from party animals like Lexi and Brittany to more reserved types like his sister Sarah. I figured the mix would keep things balanced. I was wrong. The planning started 3 months before. Lexi created a group chat called Julia's Last Fling, which should have been my first red flag. Every day there were messages about clubs, beaches, boat parties, male strip clubs. I kept saying I wanted something low-key, but Lexi wouldn't hear it. "You only get one bachelorette party," she said. "We're not spending it at some boring spa." She booked us at this boutique hotel in South Beach, right in the middle of the party district. When I looked it up online, the reviews were all about the wild pool parties and celebrity sightings. This was not the relaxing weekend I'd envisioned. I was excited, but also nervous. I'm not really a party person anymore. In college, sure, but at 29 I was more into wine nights than club nights. But my friends insisted. Miami, beaches, clubs, the whole 9 yards. The first night was fun, but tame. We went to dinner, had some drinks, danced a little. I texted Mark before bed, told him I loved him and missed him. I meant it. Despite our lack of passion, I did love him. He was my best friend, my partner, my future. The second night is where things went wrong. We started drinking early. Mimosas at brunch, cocktails by the pool, pre-gaming in the hotel. By the time we got to the club, I was already pretty drunk. Not sloppy drunk, but definitely feeling it. Let me paint you a picture of that day. We woke up around 11, already hungover from the night before. Lexi had ordered room service. Champagne, orange juice, pastries. "Hair of the dog," she said, pouring generous mimosas for everyone. By the pool, the drinks kept coming. The hotel had some promotion where you buy a bucket of beers and get free shots. Brittany thought it would be hilarious to order 3 buckets for 7 girls. Sarah, Mark's sister, kept trying to get me to slow down, but the other girls would roll their eyes and hand me another drink. "Don't be such a buzzkill, Sarah," Lexi said. "Her husband's going to boring her to death soon enough. Let her have fun now." I should have listened to Sarah, but there was this pressure to not be the boring bride, to prove I could still hang with my party girlfriends. Every time I tried to skip around, someone would make a comment about me getting old or turning into Mark. By dinner, I could barely walk straight. We went to this trendy restaurant where they served cocktails in fish bowls meant for sharing. Except everyone got their own. I remember trying to eat something substantial, but the girls kept making toasts and I had to drink for everyone. To Julia's last night of freedom. To the best bachelorette party ever. To what happens in Miami stays in Miami. That last one should have been my warning. Brittany said it with this knowing look, like she was planning something. Later, I found out she'd been telling everyone I needed one last wild night before settling down with boring Mark. She'd even been DMing with some local guys about meeting up with us. That's where we met them. 2 guys, clearly players, buying drinks for every pretty girl in sight. They zeroed in on our group immediately. "Bachelorette party? Let us buy you a round to celebrate." I should have said no. But my friends were all excited, and free drinks are free drinks, right? Plus, what's the harm in letting some random guys buy us drinks? I was getting married, not joining a convent. The guys, I honestly don't even remember their names, were charming in that Miami nightclub way. All smooth talk and expensive cologne. They weren't even that attractive, but they knew how to work a room. They kept the drinks coming, kept the compliments flowing. "Your fiancé is a lucky man," one of them said, and I remember feeling a little thrill at the attention. When was the last time Mark had called me beautiful? When was the last time he'd looked at me like these strangers were looking at me? The night gets fuzzy after that. I remember more drinks. I remember someone suggesting we go back to their hotel suite to continue the party. I remember my friends cheering, saying it would be fun. I remember thinking, what's the harm? We're just hanging out. I don't remember much after that. Flashes, maybe. Laughing, more drinks, someone with a camera. Then nothing until I woke up the next morning with the worst hangover of my life and a sick feeling that something bad had happened. What happened last night? I asked Lexi. She laughed. You had fun for once in your life. Don't worry, what happens in Miami stays in Miami. But the way she said it, the way some of the other girls were looking at me, I knew it was bad. It took me hours to get the full story out of them. Yes, something had happened with those guys. Yes, they had video. No, they didn't think it was a big deal. Everyone does crazy stuff at their bachelorette party, Brittany said. Mark never has to know. I felt sick. Physically, emotionally, spiritually sick. I had cheated on my fiancé. I couldn't even remember it, but I had done it. The girls kept telling me it didn't count, that I was too drunk to consent, that it was just a stupid mistake. But I knew Mark wouldn't see it that way. I spent the rest of the trip in a fog. I couldn't eat, could barely sleep. Every time I thought about facing Mark, I wanted to throw up, but my friends convinced me that telling him would only hurt him. You made a mistake, Lexi said. Don't ruin your whole future over one drunken night you don't even remember. So I didn't tell him. I came home, hugged him, told him I missed him, and tried to pretend everything was normal. For 3 days, I almost believed I could do it. I could bury this secret and move forward. Mark would never have to know, and we could have our safe, predictable life together. Then he disappeared. No warning, no confrontation, just gone. I came home from my final dress fitting to find his note. I know what happened in Miami. The wedding is off. My world imploded. How did he know? Who told him? I called and called, but he wouldn't answer. My parents were furious, then confused, then horrified when I finally broke down and told them what happened. The shame in my father's eyes is something I'll never forget. The wedding day that wasn't was the worst day of my life. All those people who were supposed to watch me get married, now knowing why it didn't happen. The whispers, the judgment, the pity. I wanted to die. When Mark finally responded to my messages, it was just to say it was over. No discussion, no chance to explain. Just done. 5 years thrown away. Our whole future gone. And yes, I know it was my fault. I know I'm the one who cheated. But couldn't he at least talk to me? Couldn't he let me explain how sorry I was, how it meant nothing, how I'd do anything to fix it? The truth started coming out in pieces. Someone had sent him a video. Those guys had filmed it, and somehow it got back to Mark. When I think about him watching that, seeing me with other men, I want to crawl into a hole and die. But I also feel angry. Who films someone without their consent? Who sends that kind of thing to someone's fiancé? The aftermath was brutal. Our friends took sides, and most sided with Mark. Of course they did. He was the victim. I was the cheater. Black and white, no room for nuance or context or understanding that I was too drunk to make good decisions. My bridesmaids tried to defend me at first. They'd been there. They'd seen how drunk I was, how those guys had pursued us. But Mark's friends twisted everything, made it sound like we'd planned the whole thing, like I'd gone to Miami intending to cheat. Then things got worse. I found out I was pregnant. The timing was horrible, right around the bachelorette party. At first, I convinced myself it had to be Mark's. We'd had sex before I left, the math could work. I clung to that hope because the alternative was too horrible to consider. Mark demanded a paternity test. Of course he did. Mr. Rational couldn't just take my word for it. When I showed up at his door, visibly pregnant, hoping maybe a baby would change things, he looked at me like I was a stranger. No compassion, no emotion, just cold calculation. I want a paternity test, he said, like he was asking for a spreadsheet. How can you be so cold? I asked. This could be your child. And if it is, I'll take appropriate action. But given your history of honesty, I need proof. History of honesty. Like one drunken mistake erased 5 years of loyalty. But that's Mark. Everything is black and white, no shades of gray. When the test came back negative, I broke. Not just because the baby wasn't his, but because my last hope of salvaging something from the wreckage was gone. I had to face the truth. I was pregnant by a stranger whose name I didn't even remember, who wanted nothing to do with me or the baby. Mark watched me fall apart with that same calm expression. No satisfaction, but no sympathy either. Just that rational assessment, like I was a problem that had been solved. "I hope you get the help you need," he said, like I was some stranger on the street, not the woman he'd planned to marry. Finding out about my previous mistakes, yes, there had been others, was just salt in the wound. 2 other times in 5 years when I'd slipped up. Both drunk, both meaningless, both immediately regretted. I never told Mark because I knew he wouldn't understand. He'd never made a mistake in his life, never done something in the moment that he regretted. The time with my coworker was after our company Christmas party. Mark had skipped it, of course. He didn't like parties. I was drunk and lonely, and when Tom from accounting kissed me, I kissed back. We ended up in his hotel room, and I hated myself the next morning. But it meant nothing. Tom and I never even spoke about it again. That night haunts me differently now. Mark had promised to come to the party, then bailed at the last minute because of some server issue at work. I'd bought a new dress, done my hair, was excited to show him off to my coworkers. Instead, I stood there alone while everyone else slow danced with their partners. Tom was going through a divorce. We bonded over drinks at the bar, complaining about absent partners. When he suggested we get some air, I knew what he really meant. But I was angry at Mark, tired of always coming second to his job, tired of feeling like an afterthought in my own relationship. The sex was terrible, awkward, fumbling over in minutes. I cried afterward, not because I was sad, but because I was disgusted with myself. Tom fell asleep snoring while I lay there thinking about what I'd done. I snuck out before dawn and threw up in the parking garage. The other time was early in our relationship, when I wasn't even sure we were exclusive. Some guy at a club when I was out with friends. I barely remembered his face the next day. These weren't affairs. They weren't emotional connections. They were stupid, drunken mistakes that meant nothing. That one happened about 3 months into dating Mark. We hadn't had the exclusive talk yet, and he'd just canceled our 3rd date in a row for work. I was out with college friends, drowning my frustration in vodka cranberries, when this guy started hitting on me. He was everything Mark wasn't, spontaneous, flirty, fully present in the moment. I justified it to myself afterward. Mark and I weren't official. He clearly wasn't that into me if work always came first. But deep down, I knew it was wrong. When Mark finally asked me to be his girlfriend a week later, I said yes and pushed that night so far down I almost convinced myself it never happened. But try explaining that to perfect Mark. In his world, you're either faithful or you're not. There's no room for human weakness, no understanding that people make mistakes. He'd never been tempted because he never put himself in tempting situations. He was always in control, always rational, always above the messy human emotions that lead to bad decisions. Now, I'm raising my son alone. The father wants nothing to do with us beyond court-ordered child support. My parents help, but I see the disappointment in their eyes every day. My career has suffered from all the stress and time off. Most of my friends have distanced themselves, not wanting to be associated with the woman who cheated on perfect Mark. My son's name is Mason. I gave him that name because it means worker in stone, and I wanted him to be stronger than me. He has his father's eyes, whoever that is. Sometimes I look at him and try to figure out which one of those Miami guys created him. It's a sick game I play with myself, another form of punishment. The birth was horrible. I was alone except for my mother, who spent most of the time crying about how this wasn't how she'd pictured becoming a grandmother. No partner to hold my hand, no excited father pacing the waiting room, just me and the consequences of one night I can't remember. I had to take 6 weeks unpaid leave because I'd used up my maternity leave time dealing with the stress of the canceled wedding and subsequent breakdown. My boss was understanding but distant. I used to be on the fast track for promotion. Now, I'm just trying to keep my job. The other moms at daycare know my story. Small-town gossip travels fast. They're polite but cold, making small talk while keeping their distance. Their husbands probably told them to stay away from the cheater, like infidelity is contagious. My dating life is non-existent. Who wants to date a single mom with a reputation? I tried online dating once. 3 matches in a row recognized me and asked if I was the bachelorette party girl. One actually had the nerve to ask if I was looking for another threesome. I deleted the apps that night. And Mark? He's thriving. New apartment, promotion, new girlfriend who probably appreciates his spreadsheets and emotional distance. I saw them once at a restaurant. She's pretty in that wholesome, never makes mistakes way. They looked happy, stable, boring. He wrote in his last update that he's grateful for what happened, that I freed him to find real happiness, like our 5 years together were some kind of prison he escaped from, like I was the villain in his story rather than a flawed human who made a terrible mistake. But here's what Mark doesn't understand and never will. Relationships aren't spreadsheets. People aren't problems to be solved. Sometimes good people do bad things. Sometimes one mistake shouldn't define an entire relationship. Sometimes forgiveness and understanding are more important than being right. I'm not saying what I did was okay. It wasn't. I betrayed the man I was supposed to marry, and I have to live with that guilt every day. But did I deserve to have my entire life destroyed? Did one drunken night erase 5 years of love and partnership? Did I deserve to be abandoned without even a conversation? Mark got his closure, his revenge, his happy ending. I got single motherhood, social exile, and a lifetime of regret. He gets to be the hero who escaped the cheating fiancé. I get to be the cautionary tale, the woman who threw it all away for nothing. The worst part? I still love him. Not the real him. I see now that the real Mark is someone who can walk away from 5 years without looking back. But the him I thought he was, the partner I believed I had. I mourn that relationship every day, even though I'm the one who killed it. My therapist says I need to forgive myself, that holding on to guilt and shame isn't helping anyone. But how do you forgive yourself when your mistake cost you everything? When your son will grow up without a father because of choices you made? When you're the villain in your own story? Dr. Stevens is nice enough, but she doesn't really get it. She's never made a mistake that ruined her entire life. She sits there in her perfect office with her perfect diplomas on the wall and tells me I need to process my shame in healthy ways. You were intoxicated, she says. Your judgment was impaired. While you need to take responsibility for putting yourself in that situation, you also need to recognize that alcohol played a significant role in your decision-making. But that's just therapy speak for you're a drunk slut who couldn't control herself. At least that's how it feels. Every week I pay $150 to have someone tell me in gentle terms what everyone else says behind my back. She's had me write letters to Mark that I'll never send. Pages and pages of apologies, explanations, begging for forgiveness. In one, I wrote about all the times he'd chosen work over us, all the moments I'd felt invisible in our relationship. Dr. Stevens said it was good to acknowledge those feelings, but all it did was make me realize how pathetic I'd been, staying with someone who treated me like an afterthought. The worst therapy session was when she made me watch the video. Yes, that video. She said I needed to confront what happened, instead of hiding from it. I threw up afterward, right in her pristine garbage can. Seeing myself like that, seeing how enthusiastic I looked, hearing myself say those things, it destroyed the narrative I'd built about being too drunk to consent. How do you feel watching that? She asked. Like I want to die, I said. Let's explore that feeling, she responded, like my complete humiliation was just another topic for discussion. I see the way people look at me now, the whispers when I walk by. That's her, the one who cheated on Mark at her bachelorette party. Like that one night defines everything about me. Like the 5 years of loyalty before that don't count. Like the fact that I was too drunk to remember it doesn't matter. Mark writes about finding real happiness with someone worthy of trust. The implication is clear. I was never worthy. 5 years of being faithful, minus 2 mistakes he didn't know about, weren't enough to earn trust. One night undid everything. But maybe that's the real tragedy here. Not that I lost Mark, but that I spent 5 years with someone who could dispose of me so easily. Someone who valued being right more than fighting for our relationship. Someone who could watch me beg for forgiveness and feel nothing. I made a terrible mistake. I own that. But Mark made choices too. He chose to leave without talking to me. He chose to humiliate me publicly. He chose to turn our friends against me. He chose revenge over resolution. He chose his pride over our love. So yes, I'm the cheater. I'm the one who ruined everything. I'm the cautionary tale. But I'm also a human being who made a mistake while intoxicated and lost everything because of it. While Mark gets to move on as the wronged party, I'm left to pick up the pieces and try to build a life for my son and me. Maybe someday I'll find someone who can love me despite my flaws, someone who understands that people make mistakes, someone who values forgiveness over perfection. Or maybe I won't. Maybe this is my penance. A lifetime of loneliness for one night I can't even remember. Either way, I have to live with what I've done. But Mark has to live with what he's done too. He just doesn't know it yet. Because someday, his new perfect girlfriend will make a mistake. Maybe not cheating, but something. And when she does, will he talk to her about it? Will he show compassion and understanding? Or will he do what he does best, cut his losses and walk away? I looked her up online. Melissa. Of course she has a perfect name to go with her perfect life. She's a yoga instructor and life coach. Her Instagram is full of inspirational quotes about living your truth and choosing happiness. I wonder if she knows her happiness is built on my misery. She's everything I'm not. Thin, blonde, probably never had a messy night in her life. Her photos show her hiking, meditating, drinking green smoothies. The kind of woman who probably thinks a wild night is staying up past 10 p.m. to finish a documentary about sustainable farming. Mark comments on all her posts with heart emojis. He never used emojis when we were together, said they were juvenile. But there he is, posting hearts and fire symbols on her sunset yoga photos like a teenager. It makes me sick. I wonder if she knows the full story. Does she know about the spreadsheets? The emotional distance? The way he can cut people out of his life without a backward glance? Or does she only see the victim, the poor guy whose fiancé cheated on him? Sometimes I fantasize about messaging her, warning her, telling her that the man she's with is capable of cruelty she can't imagine. That one mistake, one moment of imperfection, and she'll be erased from his life like she never existed. But I don't. Let her find out the hard way like I did. I think we both know the answer to that. And when that day comes, maybe he'll understand that destroying someone for one mistake isn't strength. It's weakness. It's the inability to deal with the messy, complicated reality of human relationships. But by then, it'll be too late. Just like it's too late for us now. All because I made one drunken mistake and he couldn't find it in himself to even discuss forgiving me. That's my side of the story. The side nobody wants to hear. The cheater's perspective. The villain's truth. Take it or leave it, but at least now you know. There are two sides to every story, even this one. And maybe that's the real tragedy. Not that I cheated, but that we were so wrong for each other from the start. I needed someone who could handle imperfection, who understood that people are flawed and messy and sometimes make terrible choices. He needed someone who could live up to his impossible standards, who could fit neatly into his spreadsheets and 5-year plans. We were doomed from the beginning. The bachelorette party just exposed what was always true. We were two people playing roles, pretending to be perfect for each other, when neither of us knew how to be real. I played the good girlfriend settling down. He played the devoted boyfriend who had everything figured out. But you can't build a marriage on playing pretend. Eventually, the masks slip. Mine slipped in Miami, in the worst possible way. His slipped when he showed he could walk away from 5 years without a single conversation. So here I am, living with my parents, raising a baby alone, watching my ex-fiancé build a new life with someone else. And despite everything, despite the pain and humiliation and loss, maybe this is where I was always meant to end up. Alone with my consequences, finally forced to be real. I just wish the lesson hadn't cost so much. I wish my son didn't have to pay for my mistakes. I wish Mark could have found even a tiny bit of forgiveness in his perfectly organized heart. But wishes don't change reality, and my reality is what it is. A cautionary tale. A villain's origin story. A woman who had everything and threw it away for one night she can't even remember. That's who I am now. That's who I'll always be in this town, in this life. And the worst part? I probably deserve it. But knowing that doesn't make it hurt any less.